Hello, and welcome to the Parthenon podcast. As always, I'm your host, Joe.
And I'm Meg.
And today we have stories, because it's the Parthenon. That's what we do best.
That's what news organizations produce.
Yeah, that's what we produce. That's what we be hippity-hopping out all the time, it seems. We, even though it's February, a month in which the groundhog goes back into his hole and hibernates after coming out and seeing a shadow or not seeing a shadow, we are not hibernating on these stories.
Nope. That's all. Yeah, no.
We are keeping diligent.
When you were talking about that, I was thinking of the way that he spells his name, Puxatani. And I thought
you were talking about Groundhog, Mr. Groundhog.
Yeah, that's his name. His name is Puxatani Phil.
Yeah. I've recently watched Groundhog's Day, not on Groundhog's Day, but my roommate said he had never seen the film with Bill and Murray, and I think it's an interesting film in which it kind of depicts a reality in which a man is living in his own hell on earth, where he's in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania for forever.
I think I've seen bits and pieces of it, and it was like when I was in 6th grade and my civics teacher didn't really want to teach us anything else.
What did you think about it?
It's funny. It's Bill Murray, so I liked it.
I think it was a little bit sad. You're watching this poor man suffer for what seems like, I think someone calculated it and it was like, Bill Murray was in Puxatawny, Pennsylvania for 700 years. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was something like that. I don't know if it was 700 exactly, but it was horrifically long and awful.
I would imagine. I've been in some awful places for prolonged periods that I don't prefer to be in ever again. I'll never
like
go
school?
to Georgia again.
Georgia?
Mark my words, I'll never go to Georgia again.
What about Georgia steers you clear of Georgia ever again?
Well, the sun assaulted me 24/7. I got a sunburn at nighttime once.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a true story.
Us Appalachian folk, we burn easy.
Well, especially being from Huntington, where the sun only comes out when it's double dog dared, which is not very often.
Yeah.
So it wasn't good for my skin, and it just left a real bad taste in my mouth being there for the Army. I was stationed there for 5 months, and it was...
You're like, I'm tired of getting burned.
Yeah. I'm tired of getting burned in more ways than one, and it was just not a good time.
That double entendre.
So I got 2, you know how in prison they get furlough?
Yeah.
It's basically like furlough for a weekend. I got it twice. One, I had to write a letter to the battalion or the brigade commander.
To get your furlough.
To get my furlough, yeah. And why I deserved it and everything. I had to meet with him in person as well. And I got it, ironically enough.
Yeah.
And I got it because he was actually impressed. He wanted to know more about me and why he should trust me to let me go for a weekend, basically.
Yeah.
And he was like, who are you? What do you do in the real world? Blah, 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 blah. What did you do before the Army? And so I showed him some of my Parthenon articles and told him about things I had accomplished at school in regard to journalism and stuff. And he was impressed. And he let me have it because of my Parthenon articles.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I went to Tybee Island in Savannah, Georgia. It was a beautiful little beach. It wasn't super crowded.
Yeah.
I learned that I like crab legs on my 2-day furlough.
Dip those puppies in some butter. Go to town on them.
I wasn't supposed to, but I definitely drank some beer and swam in a pool because the ocean scares me.
Swam in some beer.
Yeah, that too. And yeah, but it was hard to enjoy it because I knew I was about to go right back. So
that's how it always feels. Even in school, when you're on like a break of some sort, or it's the weekend, it's like, gotta get back into the grind of things. This isn't applicable, of course, because the military is probably a little bit more strenuous, but I think we all have our own personal hells, like Bill Murray, and we don't look forward to going back to Puxatawny, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. Mine's Georgia.
Yeah.
Mine's the Army in general, honestly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of war-torn areas and violence in relation to groundhogs.
Like Georgia and Pennsylvania.
This is a recut. This isn't the original segue. Well, we're going to be talking about West Virginia needs gun reform, and this kind of ties into the story that we had last week talking about concealed carry on campus, and this seems to be directly attributed as a response and kind of a backing up as why we don't need concealed carry, according to this author right here. In the
It's
Parthenon
also
newspaper.
important to preface this story with the fact that it is an editorial.
Yes.
That does not mean that it is factual.
Mm-hmm.
That means that this is someone's take on a topic.
This is opinion-based.
Yes.
As we seek in the United States, we all have our own opinions. We talk about them all the time, and this is one of our own opinion on why.
And you are allowed to put those in newspapers.
Yeah.
That's what makes newspapers more diverse.
And it has this big editorial font. Look at that.
It's important to know what the word editorial means before saying fake news.
Exactly. So what it says in this article is mainly it talks about how in our country 700 people die of gun violence every week. And West Virginia's gun violence is a problem as it ranks within one of the it's one of the ninth, I think it's the ninth worst state in terms of gun violent rates. And so that means per 100,000 citizens, there is 18.6 deaths. So you could probably round that up and be 19 deaths.
That's
due to
way
gun
more
violence
than it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of people if you think about it. Well, as it goes on, we got an F rating. F stands for failure. So it's not very good in terms of a rating on the Giffords Law scorecard, and I guess attributing to gun violence and being a high rate of violence in that regard. And other states with worse ratings, I can't speak today. Other states with high gun violent rates are Alaska, Alabama, Montana, and Louisiana. I didn't foresee Alaska as being in there for some reason.
I probably would. It's pretty rural.
Yeah.
When I think of rural, I don't think of Alaska, but like it is.
There also aren't a lot of people there.
I imagine everything kind of ties in with one another, right? And this is just an idea. And I think that maybe, given the information I have from my friends that are police officers, a lot of gun violence stems from domestic violence as well.
Really?
Yeah, and domestic violence usually comes from, not always, of course, but a lot of addiction issues and just poor situations, unfortunate situations. So
yeah,
I know my friend is a state trooper, and I ask him often what he's up to and if he wants to hang out, and he'll be like, yeah, I'll come see you in my lunch break. 3 or 4 times in the last couple months, he's been like, I can't. There's someone with a gun threatening their loved one. So,
jeez.
And then he has to go and take care of that.
I'm sorry if there were a lot of viewers out there from Alaska, but it seems like a very depressing state, considering that like half of the time it's dark out.
Yeah.
All the time. And that can contribute, it seems, when you don't get a lot of sunlight.
Yes.
And I know even in Huntington, where we don't even get much sunlight, I get pretty depressed, honestly.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about that today when I was leaving, that like I live in a little Seattle because it's just always raining or dark.
Mm-hmm.
It almost feels uncomfortable when the light is out.
Yeah, it feels unnatural. It's not Huntington's proper state. If I have a visual image of Huntington, you say, what do you think about, what does Huntington look like in your head? I imagine long and gray.
Huntington, my first like initial thought is this like, did you ever read those Cam Jansen books when you were little?
Mm-mm.
They were like little mystery books, and she was this little girl that like had a photographic memory, and her name was Jansen, and
Jansen Williams, basketball.
I like him too. He's my friend. But she like, her name was Cam, so she had like a camera in her head or whatever.
Oh, okay.
For her photographic memory. So I always call these like my Cam Jansen memories. I have one where I was on the 15th floor of Towers East in my room, very left corner of the building, and I could see like all of Huntington out of my window. I could see from all the way up to Spring Hill Cemetery to the hospital, Cowell Huntington Hospital, and I could see Ritter Park in the distance too.
Yeah.
And like at night or when it was raining and you could see all like the fog and the clouds and like little light bursts coming through.
That's your memory of it.
That's my visual of Huntington when I think of it. Mm-hmm.
I read a lot of Magic Treehouse. And my sister read a lot of the Judy Moody series.
I like the Hardy Boys.
Ooh, okay. Mm-hmm. Those boys were always up to no good.
Remember, all the girls in my grade would read the Nancy Drew, but I wasn't friends with most of the girls. I was friends with the boys, and they were reading Hardy Boys. And I very distinctly remember a time where one of my fourth grade teacher was like, "Why are you reading the Hardy Boys? You are supposed to be reading Nancy Drew." And I was like, "I like the Hardy Boys." And
that's a weird way to look at it as an adult. I
agree, but it was. Remember, my town was in my opinion, my town was very backward.
Why are you reading the Hardy Boys?
You're a girl. You can't read things about boys.
I don't know. What's weird is like my mom lived in the she was a kid in the 70s, and she had tons of Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys stuff. And I think she read the Hardy Boys more because she had a crush on them, even though they're fictitious characters who wore sweater vests.
That's okay.
Yeah.
They were well dressed and clean cut, I guess.
They were intelligent men. They knew what they wanted.
Mysteries.
And they solved mysteries, yeah. They're detectives.
Yeah. And the majority of the time, from what I recall, they treated women with respect.
Exactly. They were like, "Man, we have a search warrant." And just kidding. I've never read a full Hardy Boys book.
I read literally every one. But remember, at the time I read them, I was not as woke as I am now.
Oh.
I was not as aware of what was going on in the world.
So they could have been saying some really racist and hellacious stuff back then?
They might have, but I saw them for what their intended purpose was.
They're like, "Man, we have a search warrant. We got to look at your haunted cuckoo clock."
Have you ever gone back and revisited movies or books or something that you loved or paid a lot of attention to when you were younger, growing up?
Yeah.
And you see it now and you're like, "Oh my God, this is really problematic and racist and homophobic and stuff." Because I totally did that just the other day with Big Fat Liar.
Really? Mm-hmm. What? I actually watched Big Fat Liar pretty recently. What did you see as being problematic in it?
There were parts that were very fat shaming. Then there were some
Paul Giamatti shaming.
Racist. There were some racist comments about not explicitly, but very implicit and passive aggressive things that you wouldn't have picked up on as a kid in the 90s or early 2000s. But now that we have shed some more light and we're more progressive and aware of these things, hearing them now, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't." Questionable, but
people were very mean. People were meaner back then, and they shamed Paul Giamatti in that movie. That poor man. They turned him blue.
Yeah. But he was the one doing the shaming during the scenes.
He was mean.
He was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I don't think it was on him. It was on whoever wrote his lines and whatnot.
Paul Giamatti, he just conjured up those lines from his heart.
He's the real victim.
He is the real victim. I'm trying to think of any other movies that has been problematic. I mean, I do that with movies, and then I'm like, this movie's not as enjoyable as it used to be. Mm-hmm. I don't think I've had a lot of my literature or movies come back to bite me in terms of viewing them as being homophobic or racist. I assume
I got a lot of transphobia in the early 2000s too.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one you could probably see in
you might still see that today.
I think if you grew up with a lot of movies from the late 70s, early 80s, I remember watching a few YouTube videos on how problematic the movie Revenge of the Nerds is, and that movie, and if you grew up watching things like Porky's and Animal House, all those coming of age, college age movies from the late 70s.
Yes.
Now those are problematic.
Yeah.
Those are real, you don't even have to look very hard. Because I was watching a full analysis on the problems with watching Revenge of the Nerds now. And it's most of these are just sexual assault. Mm-hmm. These aren't even pranks in the movie. It's oh my gosh. Movies, man, come a long way.
Whereas, I was thinking the comparison, while I do, and I assume you do too, think it's a good thing to be more aware of the things that are problematic like that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm sure other people are like, "Oh, let it go. It's just a cartoon, or it's just a movie, or it's not real." And we're just being snowflakes. Yeah, I like to think that we can all change and do better, especially when we're not aware of the behaviors we're doing. Mm-hmm. I know very well my own mom. My mom's a little older. She's going on 64, she doesn't mean to say the problematic things that she does or hurtful things that she does, because from her time, the things that she's saying would have had no repercussion. Nobody would have batted an eyelash at it, wouldn't think anything of it. So
it's just a different environment.
Yeah, and they're not terrible, but they're worth mentioning now. Saying, hey, that's not okay to say. Try this instead.
Yeah. That's
hurtful because... But I don't villainize her for that. She's learning. She's from a different time.
I remember... Well, I read a post today, and it was like some lady was being harassed, and she was an elementary school teacher, and this was just in the 30s. And she couldn't enter the courtroom, even though she was the defendant, because she was wearing slacks.
Oh my gosh.
So she's the defendant. Yeah, she's the defendant. And she's like, I want to wear slacks because they're comfortable and you can't make me change. And so, like, that's just wild to think that was less than a century ago. And, I don't know. It's wild. Wowza.
Yeah, okay. Moving on.
Yeah, on a lighter note, let's talk about the Parthopet this week.
Let's talk about the Parthopet on a lighter note. Okay. This week's Parthopet is Cinder, who's a bearded dragon. For the cameras watching.
Yeah, bearded.
Cinder is a 7-month-old bearded dragon who loves to eat fruit, veggies, and, in all caps, bugs.
Me too.
She'd easily say her favorite snacks are horned worms and bell peppers. One of my favorite snacks is also bell pepper, Cinder. She loves all things warm, meeting new people, and going out on the town for a new adventure, often popping up somewhere on campus. So keep your eyes peeled for a bearded dragon named Cinder who likes bell peppers and worms.
Can we see this? Is this bearded dragon going to be out and about, like on a leash?
It might.
On someone's shoulder?
Sounds like she likes an adventure, so.
Who's the owner? You don't have to name their full name.
I don't know. I don't know the owner. They submitted it
anonymously.
Perhaps anonymously to Douglas, another editor. So
Douglas probably knows.
But if you have a neat pet that you want featured in the Parthopet, send it in to harding26@marshall.edu. That's HARDING26@marshall.edu.
Has someone sent in an inanimate object yet as a pet, like a pet rock?
You could do a rock, yeah. It's a pet rock.
The low maintenance. They don't eat anything. They last for millions of years.
I wonder what their bio would be. Really calm.
Yeah.
Chill.
Cool.
Good at staring contests.
Yeah, they don't blink.
They don't because they're rocks.
Exactly. Stone cold determination.
Literally.
Exactly. Stone. This is my rock, Stone. I don't know.
I have a friend named Rock, and Quinlan has a friend named Stone.
That's a match made in heaven. Then you'd be best friends.
Rock was my first kiss in elementary school.
Ooh.
Speaking of which, do you have a Valentine?
I do not. I'm single. Ladies.
Well, on this week's episode of Joe Needs a Valentine.
Send in your applications. I'll look them over. I don't know.
If you're listening to this, it's one day before Valentine's Day.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, it is. So you need to send them in fast. Requirements. Breathing.
That's a good one.
Alive. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think. Those are all the requirements I have.
Yeah. Anyway, I did a story this week on a cute couple and their love story.
Oh, shoot.
Which is a neat angle. I did a story this week on Lori Thompson and her wife, Kristen Van Netter, and I'm so sorry if I butchered her last name, but she spelled it for me, and that was the best I got. Kristen and Lori both work at Marshall. Lori works in the Special Collections and is in Morrow Library and is an archivist. And then her wife, Kristen, works as an IT person in the IT department, fixing classroom equipment like smart boards and things like that. And the interesting angle is that Kristen is deployed with the West Virginia Army National Guard, which I'm oh so familiar with.
Yeah.
And she has been gone since August and has orders to be gone until this coming August. So a full year. Could be more, could be less. Really, the Army owns your life at that point.
Yeah.
So could be. But yeah, check that story out in print and online. And it is under the subtitle Cupid's Corner and or Cupid's Q&A, whatever they decide to put in there tonight. I can't tell you for certain because that's the other editors.
Cupid's Q&A.
Mm-hmm. We're doing a segment this month for Valentine's Day and the spirit of love and such about couples on campus. And next week we have special guests that will join us, another couple from Marshall's campus, and tell their love story.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Check out that story if you give a care about love and all things gushy. If you don't, that's fine. That's your prerogative.
That's fine, yeah. And the good thing about Valentine's Day and Valentine's month is you don't even have to have a sweetheart of your own. You can tell your mom and dad you love them.
It's all about love, you know?
Tell your pet rock you love them.
It doesn't have to be romantic.
Yeah. It could be platonic love, subaquatic love.
I've never experienced that kind, but...
Let me tell you, Meg, it's the best love out there.
So you don't have a Valentine?
No, I don't. No. Sorry to disappoint you guys out there, but Joe's single, ready to mingle.
I'm also sorry to disappoint. I do have a Valentine.
You really have to rub it in my face like that, Meg. Really? A day before Valentine's Day?
Sorry.
Rubbing it in my face?
If Quinlan's listening, thanks for being my Valentine and being nice to me most of the time.
You guys have any fun plans, like going to Olive Garden or the flea market?
Well, I have to get ready for drill, so probably not. But she has been diligently working for weeks on something that I don't know for me for Valentine's Day. And she gets super excited and wants to tell me little bits and pieces of it. So I only have like little puzzle pieces that don't really fit about what it is. But she doesn't know what I've done for her. And I don't want her to hear this a day early. But I did a nice thing for her. I got her some stuff and made her some things.
I'd like to imagine that you guys are both building desks for each other, and you guys don't know that you're both doing the same thing.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Exactly what I needed, a desk.
I needed a desk.
I really do need a desk, though.
That's what Quinlan's getting for you.
I hope.
She heard you on this podcast. She's like, that girl needs a desk.
I really want to tell you what I got her.
You can tell me, whisper in my ear.
I'll just
Do you want me to bleep it out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're that out there, guys. You got to live up to this standard. Well, I'm going to cut this segment anyway because I don't want Quinlan to hear it, so I don't know who I'm even talking to.
Just beep the entire conversation, and it's just a beep for like a solid minute.
That'd be pretty fun. Pretty cute. Trying to think. What else did I want to say? I had something that I want to talk about. Oh, yeah. Did you watch the Oscars?
No, I didn't. I was doing homework and sleeping.
I didn't watch it either. I don't want to watch the Oscars because it's too long. I like hearing about who won, though, because that's kind of cool.
I don't watch enough movies to know.
Yeah.
So.
I think one of the first greats in a while, this was like one of the first times an international movie won Best Picture, which is really interesting.
What movie?
It's called Parasite. I think it's Korean, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
What is it about?
I honestly don't know, but I've heard a lot of great things about it.
I'm going to give it a Google. I might have seen it.
Give it a Google.
Mm-hmm. I think one of my professors made us watch this.
Really? It just came out.
I hope I was wrong.
But I'm excited. Apparently, it's very good, and I don't like seeing the hateful articles that are like, "Ha, we got him," because these movies about hateful white men are being kicked out. It's not about that. It's about good movies, and that Parasite won because it's a good movie, not because it's going against the grain. It's because it's making something really good, and you're just making a great movie. It's not about making a statement, you know?
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie and I know nothing about it, but
Yeah.
Your face got a little flushed, so I'm going to assume that you're very passionate about it, and if you're that passionate about it, Joe, then I completely respect it.
I'm flushed because, one, I'm getting hot from the coffee. Probably shouldn't kept on the toboggan. Toboggan. I don't know.
I have this is completely off topic,
Okay.
but I have a quick PSA before I forget.
What's PSA?
Okay. So, if you know anything about the Marshall J School or you are a public relations student, you probably know that part of your capstone at the end before you graduate has to do with campaigning class. You basically join a campaign.
Yes.
You run it, earn some money for usually a nonprofit in Huntington, and I'm in mine this semester, so they asked me to read this on the podcast.
Okay, read it.
So,
Do it.
So Marshall PR students are teaming up with Ronald McDonald House of Huntington. And so we have a couple events, and this is a PSA for one event coming up tomorrow, this Friday, the 14th.
Valentine's Day.
Are you looking for something to do on Valentine's Day? Come watch a movie at Huntington's Marquee Cinema, where you can enter a raffle contest to win prizes perfect for Valentine's Day. Marquee Cinema is, of course, in Pullman Square. It's the big movie. It's like the center of it. So.
Yeah, the big movie place.
Prizes will include a Vera Bradley bag, a free dinner to MU Cafe, and many more items from local businesses. All proceeds will be donated to Marshall University's PR Students Campaign for the Ronald McDonald House of Huntington, so spread some love on Valentine's Day by entering the raffle that benefits, quote, the house that love built.
Oh, okay.
The slogan changed, so it threw me off. The house that love built. For more information about this event, visit our Facebook page at Ronald McDonald House Charities of Huntington, or you can give me an email at keller61@marshall.edu.
Which film was it again that they're showing?
You can, any of them.
Oh, any film. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go see any film. Go see any movie that's in the theater. It could be Cats. I know you guys want to see that movie a whole lot. Looks really good.
We'll be set up. Well, I won't be because I'll be off doing Army things.
Yeah.
But some people in our campaign, Marshall students, PR students, will be set up with a table outside where you can enter the raffle. And let me read the infographic for it. $2 for one ticket, $5 for 3 tickets, and $10 for 10 tickets. In order to win some prizes from local businesses, we'll enter the raffle to win the prizes from local businesses and support Ronald McDonald House Charities of Huntington, Marshall PR students, and your local businesses.
Well, I believe that's all we have. Thank you for that. It's going to be very beneficial to Huntington, so go see some movies on Valentine's Day. Take a cutie, a sweetie, your mom or dad, and support Huntington. And
a loved one.
Loved one.
Maybe Cinder, the 7-month bearded dragon.
Basically, yeah.
Needs a Valentine.
He does, yeah. Well, thank you all for joining us this week. Next time, have a good Valentine's Day, everyone.
Care about you.
We care about you. All right, bye.